everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. And of course, it is myself and the Philly sports guy getting ready to head to Brazil.
Yes, but I got to start this off, and I don't care that he's not here. I got to say, F the Astros. We beat him yesterday. There he is. There he is. There he is. He had an up and down day yesterday.
Oh, man.
The down part is that the Astros spanked in the 10th inning.
Hey, we did, man. It was a good game overall, though. I thought, Pat, it was a good game. You guys obviously took the win on us, but I'm still pleased with it. We'll see how it looks as we get closer. But
it did let us creep a game closer. So
yeah, did y'all win yesterday, Bo?
What's that?
They beat Tampa 5-1.
Yeah, we did beat Tampa.
Oh, good deal.
Yep.
I only know that because somebody picked that in there. I get these weirdo Snapchats of people giving me, this piece of paper that says, "Hey, choose this guy, and this guy." For some reason, we can't type it out, so I can show you a picture.
How funny is that?
Now, I wouldn't worry too much because we are now in the if we had only won more games early in the season era of our Seattle cycle. Now we haven't got to miss the playoffs. We still have an outside shot, but we are solidly in the we should have won more games era.
That looks just like the Cowboys graphic. They must just take out the team and insert another team in there.
Well, that's the up part of your day yesterday because CeeDee Lamb took every bit of money that the Cowboys had left and said, "Put it in my pocket."
Back the Brinks truck up.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you who's the odd man out come next go around. Somebody's got to be the odd man out. Who's it going to be?
So what did he get? Did he get $35.25 million a year?
I think it's like, I know the bag is 136.
It's a 4-year, 136 mil, and 38 of it was a signing bonus.
So, but it comes out. It averages out to what? 35. Well, I guess 35 is a little less than 35
behind the quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes him the second most expensive player, non-quarterback ever. So
yeah,
it'll be less than 35, but I mean it's still a chunk of money. They're going to be rough against the cap, and of course you still have 2 huge contracts to talk about.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, yeah, you get excited a little bit now, but what's it going to cost us down the road, right? Just like those other 3 contracts, what they cost us, So somebody's going to have to pay something.
I'll be honest. What this tells me is that they made the decision, and I feel like that this is what was hampering them. They finally made the decision that Micah Parsons is going to be the one that they're franchising, and they're going to franchise him. They're going to probably franchise him as a lineman, not as an linebacker.
Probably.
So ultimately it's going to still cost some money, but that was the decision. I felt like that was what it was, but I didn't want to verbalize it then. I can verbalize it now that this was, this is a situation where they needed to figure out who they were going to pay now and who they were going to franchise later. And it was a toss-up between the both of them.
And then they still got Dak's contract to deal with as well. I mean, he's still out there. He hasn't solidified anything.
Dak is not going to re-sign.
He's not.
I mean, yeah, they can't afford all that.
Well, I think that it's a matter of I'd be willing to bet, and if the beginning of your season starts off poorly, I wouldn't be surprised if by chance you guys have a losing record after 8 or 9 weeks. And when I say that, I mean it like 3-6, or I don't know if 4-5 will do it. But if you have a 3-6 record, expect McCarthy to get fired right away, and expect them to put in Trey Lance.
Yeah, I can see
now.
that.
I know that Trey Lance is not the guy,
right?
And we saw that with his 5 interceptions.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's a matter of proving the point, like, hey, listen, we cannot continue to keep going the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially because these contracts are ending anyway, right? So I mean,
So that's what I'm saying. So you give him the bag only to go to rebuild mode.
well,
Pretty
that's the
much.
thing is you need to know what you have in Lance if you're going to keep him around, right? Because this is the last year.
Well,
of his
yeah, of course,
contract.
absolutely. You got to know what you have in him. I
Well,
agree with that.
no. I feel like that they play him. Um, I would not be surprised. See, here's the other thing. They moved the trade deadline. When is the trade deadline for the NFL? Let me check that real quick. Um,
It only went back a week, didn't it? Or did it go to week?
they extend the trade deadline to follow Week 9 games. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's
It was
week
like
10. Yeah.
right. So yeah, that Thursday before Week 10 is when the final trades are made. I would not be surprised because Dak is on the last year of his contract
Yep.
that he does not get traded. I feel that there's a possibility if there is an injury of a quarterback, and I was actually a little. I thought maybe that Minnesota could have reached out,
Sure.
but I would not be surprised to see him for a team who has a really good defense and may have a problem trying to make the playoffs and could use some veteran leadership. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dak Prescott get traded midseason.
Yeah, I mean, shit. It wouldn't surprise. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me either. Only the fact is that Jerry does have a propensity to ride out his quarterbacks for a long period of time.
Well, not only that, I here are two teams I think of right away who could possibly fall into this category if they're doing well, somewhat, and could still make the playoffs. The Saints.
Okay.
I know that they paid David Carr a lot of money, but they do have some cap space, and you would, by making that trade, I mean, you could almost trade 1-for-1 David Carr.
Yeah.
The other one being Seattle. Seattle would, if Seattle's defense is keeping them in games and their offense is sputtering, as I expect that it might be, put it back with DK could be something very worthwhile.
Too. I mean, he's got 3 good wideouts over there.
So
yeah,
I mean,
the receiver room is nice in Seattle. There's no doubt.
So I mean, but I think of those two spaces specifically could be the thing. I don't know, Joe.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know either about it. I can't. I just cannot see where the hell they would get the money to afford.
But that's the thing is that would have to be such a ridiculously backloaded,
deal,
team destroying cap situation because he's already on this year's cap for close to
$65 million right now.
So it's not like you can do anything this year outside of you can do a signing bonus, right? Like you could make the signing bonus happen because you can divide that however you want over the length of the contract, which is why he's on the hook for $65K right now. But if you do that, you have to backload it so crazy that his last year would be a nightmare to overcome, especially when you have guys like Micah Parsons still have to get signed and CeeDee Lamb that just signed a monster deal.
You would have to.
Oh, yeah.
You would have to play the game where he makes next year only about $2 million.
Exactly.
Signing bonus at $2 million. And then the following year, his cap hit would be like 90.
And that's what I mean is because you would have to backload the dollar figures. Like his cap hits would be nuts. Because
it
would do it next year, or certainly, obviously not this year because he's playing.
And at that point, now he's a 30-year-old quarterback.
Exactly.
Is he not? He's 30 years old now, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think he's sitting right at 30.
Yeah,
so,
man, I don't know how you keep going down this path, continuing to have these huge cap numbers. I mean, at some point, it blows this team up.
Well, it's starting to affect. It's starting to affect the other things, like the offensive and defensive line. That's where you got to spend some money. Like you're spending the money on the wide receivers. You got one well-paid wide receiver and 3 scrubs. I know that Cooks is not necessarily a scrub, but he's being paid like a scrub.
Well, he is.
You have a tight end. You got rid of Dalton Schultz because you didn't want to pay him because you wanted to bring in Ferguson, who's a scrub. He's getting paid like a scrub at least. He's not a scrub in the grand scheme of things, but he's not Dalton Schultz.
Right.
And for some reason, Dalton Schultz they got rid of him. I didn't think they needed to pay him so much money, but they did. Now you got Micah Parsons, who's about to go on a franchise tag, probably will sign on the franchise tag, re-sign for the following year. And then if they were to re-sign Dak, they would have to backload his 2 seasons.
That's the thing, right? So then all of those start coming together at the same time. It looks a lot like the Rams. Now the Rams got a ring and it worked, but if it doesn't, you're the Saints where you had a huge problem.
Yeah, you are.
And you got nothing out of it. So, I mean, it's definitely something you'd have to, it's a path they're on is I guess the biggest issue there. And I disagree with this, Joe, because when you look at guys like Kirk Cousins, him playing,
he obviously got the bag even after a damn Achilles heel.
Well, I mean, when you think of his time in Washington, right? He got franchise tagged twice. He played on those 1-year deals, made all that guaranteed money, then continued on going to the Vikings, getting 2 guaranteed contracts. Then he goes to Atlanta. He has a solid contract that he may not necessarily have to even play on. And that was all betting on himself to make it through a season. And I mean, has Dak been as healthy as Kirk Cousins? Maybe not, but
there's another team. There's another team that I think about as I just was reading that the third team that I thought about as possibility landing spot for Dak Prescott, depending on how the season begins, is the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see the Raiders, honestly.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Yeah.
I disagree with the Raiders only because, and I keep that they keep popping up in my head, but I don't think the Raiders, because they invested some money in this quarterback. They got this new coach who's really high on that quarterback. And I think this coach doesn't want the headache of a Dak Prescott, because Dak is going to create a headache in any situation that he comes into.
Sure.
So, and I think that, I'm not a big fan of the owner there. And obviously the owner is the biggest problem there in Las
Which
Vegas.
makes him a perfect fit.
Well, that's kind of what it is. Sometimes, like last year, what was it? The team kind of took over the asylum.
Yeah.
The players took over, and the players did better than anything that the organization was able to do. Sometimes you start to put pieces in place. Now, I know this guy's an idiot, this owner, and he is not his father. That's the problem. He is trying to walk in his father's shoes, but his father had just a better haircut person, let alone anything else. You know what I mean? It starts with the haircut.
He's walking in his dad's shoes, but his dad wears like 4 sizes bigger. So they're
right
around like he's trying, but like it's just not the same.
Where I kind of feel that Kraft might be a better owner for Dak.
Yeah.
And
of course,
and again, somebody who knows how to deal with the cap hit well enough to pay Dak, give him his money, make him happy. I mean, you think of the same 4-year thing, higher money that Daniel Jones got.
Yeah, of course.
Where it's like, hey, listen, we're going to give you a ridiculous amount of money to the tune of about $60 million a year, and we're going to front load it.
Yes.
So that it doesn't cost us so much money to kick your ass to the curb when you suck.
Yeah, which will be at the end of this season. Daniel Jones is probably looking for a new home.
Oh, but that's exactly it. Daniel Jones ain't coming back next year. There's no chance. I don't even know Daniel Jones is going to be holding a clipboard in this league.
Yeah.
Yeah, tough to say on that front. But yeah, I mean, with the
obviously he will be. I mean, let's face that, he will be. I think he'll be in Seattle. As funny as that sounds, holding clipboard.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but yeah, I mean, because for the Giants to get out of it next year, I think his cap hit's only 11.5.
It's something very small.
Almost free. It's almost free.
Right. Because anybody that you sign to any big deal has a cap hit beyond the years that they play. That's just the way that works. So
yeah, no, of course.
And I think that's but I think that's a possibility here, and I suspect. Specifically this year, you're going to see quarterbacks on the move. So yeah, I guess this kind of puts me into a fourth team that I think about right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Imagine getting Russell Wilson in
Yeah.
Dallas, a 1-for-1 trade, Russell Wilson for Dak Prescott. That might be something that actually helps out both teams. And I don't think Russell Wilson's got it anymore. But I think Russell Wilson in a Dallas Cowboys uniform with the team that they currently have, the offensive line they currently have, that's better than the Pittsburgh line, which isn't saying much, but it is better than the Pittsburgh line.
Sure.
You give him a little bit more time to navigate the backfield and try to find CD or Cooks or Ferguson, whoever they're throwing the ball to.
Mhm.
And you now have Dak Prescott. I mean, they've got halfway decent receivers back there. They just don't have any offensive line. But Dak is better at getting the ball out faster.
Yes. Well, and Dallas also yesterday had Dalvin Cook come in. So they may be adding to that running back room. Maybe they decided Zeke ain't it.
Well, they should have known that a long time ago.
Yeah, of course.
Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook, where is he at in the grand scheme of things?
Where's Dalvin at? I mean, is he really that much better? I mean, he's older.
Well, no, but you got to think about Dalvin Cook is 2 years
course.
removed. He's 2 years removed
Well, that's true.
from being
Yeah,
one of the
that's
best
true.
running backs in the league. He goes to another team, winds up pooping the bed over there because he really didn't want to play. I feel like that it was a matter of, you just don't like the locker room and you just don't feel like showing up for work. When you're going to work with a miserable attitude, you have miserable output.
Sure.
And I think that that's part of the problem. I mean, I think he liked being in Minnesota, and when Minnesota moved on from him because he asked for too much money, so I kind of feel like Dalvin Cook would thrive maybe in Dallas because that's America's team. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like but I think that there's an attitude that goes with that. And I think that that's his attitude may project that well.
No, I mean, I think it would actually be a decent fit because, like you said, they do have a good offensive line. It's not amazing, but they have a good offensive line. They do have some weapons. So, I mean,
they have a serviceable. I won't even call it good right now. It's like it may turn into good by the end of the season if they're playing well enough.
Sure.
But I think it's serviceable. I think that they lost too many pieces.
I think it's still a above average offensive line.
See, I don't think so anymore.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like we disagree. You lost your guard on the one side and the tackle on the other side, right? Jay?
Yeah.
On the line?
Yeah. So
I was just thinking, yeah.
In top 10. I'm saying it's probably like
18.
13.
I got it at 18.
See, I'm about 5 spots better. Like I'm thinking it's like 13, 14.
Well, hell, man, we just got this guy Guyton or whatever. We lost a lot of other good guys. I mean, we've been slowly losing pieces off the offensive line, slowly but surely, and replacing them with these subpar steals and things like that. I mean,
yeah. Joe,
I think it's really said we have a decent offensive line. It's not a great offensive line like it used to be. It's just, I would say it's somewhere in decent shape.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joe, I agree kind of with this, right? Like when the game wasn't all on him, when they had Saquon and their offensive line was holding up, he looked fine, right? It's where his moniker Danny Dimes ended up coming from. But that's because they didn't rely on him to do a lot. So most quarterbacks in this league, if you don't rely on them to do much, look pretty good. Pretty great. I believe they call them game managers in general.
Right.
And you can win a Super Bowl that way. So it's not that it's just solid Daniel Jones hate. And his offensive line was absolutely terrible. So he spent a lot of time on the ground last year before getting hurt. In fact,
it's hard to manage a line when you're lying on your back.
He was in danger of resetting the sack record that David Carr had.
I remember that when he came into the league with the Texans. Oh, man, that guy was horrible. I mean, he could stay up for nothing.
He wasn't horrible. The line was horrible.
No, that's what I meant.
The organization was horrible.
Yeah, the situation was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, that offensive line was a wet paper bag. Like anything you put in it went through it. Like it was, you felt bad for David Carr. He probably actually could have had a better career if he didn't spend the first few years of his career on the ground all the time.
Well, and not
Yeah.
only that, but he also probably got stuck. I mean, he got stuck in what was it? The coach that came from Penn State, and then went back to New England. So I mean, he ruined that franchise. That coach,
Yes.
he kind of did the exact same thing Chip Kelly tried to do with the Eagles.
Yes.
Mm.
Chip
Absolutely.
Kelly,
Absolutely.
it's coming out tremendously right now. How bad of an influence Chip Kelly was on this franchise in total. If it wasn't for Howie Roseman learning during the time where he got put in the back office, when they put Baby in the corner, you know what I mean? He sat there and he watched and he learned. And he paid attention, talked to other general managers,
Yep.
saw what was able to have happen, and then made it happen. So it's like you got to give kudos to Howie Roseman for taking the experience of getting thrown in the back, in the way back of the car. You know what I mean? Now you're sitting in the kid's
Right.
seat, and you got the window up where nobody can hear you. You know what I mean? And then coming out of that, and the next year winning a Super Bowl. So, and there's a
Mm.
lot to be said for that. Lot to be said for that. Or within 2 years, obviously, but
Yeah.
but there was a big change of everything that happened. I mean, they gave Shady McCoy away for a bag of peanuts. They
Yeah.
gave Jackson away for a small bag of M&Ms, not even the big family bag. It was the small bag of M&Ms. You know what I mean? And he ate those peanuts and M&Ms, and the team stunk. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the in division trades. All right, I'm gonna talk about that for a second. The in division trades. When I think about the one that was with Johan Dotson, I think that is a non-issue. Like, I think they wanted some speed in here.
Yeah.
They didn't like the wide receivers that they had on the low end of this, and they wanted to get just a little bit more experience in here. There was one of the wide receivers, and I don't know his name, that he came from Florida State. He's a 6'6" wide receiver, and I expect him to make this team. You know what I mean? He's got good hands. He's going to be like the Alshon Jeffrey when it gets into doing jump balls, because he can get over people. He can moss guys, and jump
Okay.
over them and grab the ball. So those jump balls in the end zone are going to be great when it comes to that. And he's a bigger guy, so I'm surprised at 6'6", like 235, 240 pounds. They don't try to bulk him up another 20 pounds and put him at tight end. But
Yeah.
he's got the moves as a wide receiver. He doesn't have tremendous speed. But I mean, he was playing at Florida State. He was a 6th-round pick, and he's actually doing very well. So I expect him to make this team. He's probably going to be one of those guys that plays on the kickoff team. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, or the punt return team. And when he gets his opportunities, he may wind up getting 2 or 3 touchdowns this year on jump balls. And I think that that's going to be the guy who's eventually going to take over for Johan Dotson, because I just don't see Dotson being here for longer than a year.
Right. Huh. Huh. Huh.
So I think that in division trade, I mean, he gave up a third. We got back a fifth. Now we had 2 third-round picks, so it's not a big deal. We still have a third-round pick. We get back a fifth, and we gave up 2 sevenths. I think we had 4 sevenths.
Yeah.
So it's not like the 7th-round picks are the bag of peanuts.
I'm about to say, you're just hoping for something good to come out of that, if you're lucky.
Well,
Maybe you
I
get
mean,
a proper,
I don't know. One of our 7th-round picks in 2016 has turned out to be Jordan Miles lineman right now in the
Yeah, I mean,
league.
if he goes to an area where they can develop him, then sure. I mean, that's why they're 7th-round picks. They're considered developmental guys if they're lucky enough. So,
Well, that's why I like the way the Eagles do things. Is that, first off, they typically do not like offensive linemen to start right away. So in the end of the
right,
draft, I like offensive linemen in the very beginning of the draft, because even though they don't start right away, they can get in there in the first season. They can start to be a real,
They're an impact.
correct.
Yeah.
The back end of the guys, I like them to be big dudes, because then they get on the practice squad and they learn from the master, Coach Stoutland. And if he gets him, like I said, the reason why Jordan Mailata is one of the best in the league is because the first 3 years he didn't sniff the field and he ate, drank, and shit being an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And he could play on both sides of the ball because that's the only thing they taught him. That first year, all they taught him was your back step. Using the back step. Use your left foot on the back step on this side. Use your right step on the back step on this side. Just teach that back step. Teach that back step. Teach that back step. He lived it for 3 years. When they finally put him out there, and when you do nothing except learn one thing for 3 years, what's the rule? If you do something for 5 minutes a day, every day for a year, you're better than 95% of the world at what it is you do. Imagine doing it every day for, all day long for 3 years.
Yeah.
You're going to be the best. And he just about is. He still gets beat on a couple of things. He's still more to learn. But, for somebody who never played the game before to be such a dominant force, like he's a Pro Bowl player. He may be an All-Pro this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can see one of those guys with a good kick step, you're going to be one of like 5 guys in the league. Because
that's what made Jason Peters so great. That's why Jason Peters isn't so great anymore, because he lost the back step. That's the same thing. John Runyon did the same thing. Great back step. You got Lane Johnson. Great back step. You think of the guys that Stoutland has taught and why these guys have been so good for so long. It's because of that back step. When you are in pass protection, that back step is the most important thing, because when you got that guy coming after you, if he's pushing and you can't have that down, then you are in trouble.
Yeah, you get beat.
Exactly.
All day.
Yeah. Look at the Giants. Look at the Giants. Look at the guys that they just drafted a couple years ago. They drafted a couple of offensive linemen, and they still are.
Yep. Yeah, so you'll want to screenshot this,
Yeah, you know what? I think the offense looks scary on paper. I want to see it. I want to see it in action. I want to see it in action. Yeah. I want to see it in action, and I want to see Kellen Moore in action.
God, Saquon Barkley could stay healthy. Jeez, man, that could be a scary offense.
That's all offenses right now, though, right? Until we see it happen on the field, everybody looks.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? Because if you look at Seattle, that receiving core looks awesome on paper.
Yeah.
Now, will our offensive line be able to stay healthy? Who knows? So it doesn't matter that you can have all the speed and all the talent in the world, but if your guy's on the ground a lot, it doesn't really matter. Or you look at teams like Miami, right? Until last year, they had all that speed, but if your guy is on the ground all the time, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And talking about how the pendulum swings, just as this was a goofy thing for me, as the pendulum swings. Remember the Ravens when they had a 24-game unbeaten streak in preseason?
And now they can't win one?
They've lost the last 4 straight. You know what I mean? It's
yep.
Cracks me up. It's funny how things work out. That's a pendulum. That's the pendulum.
I mean, it always comes back to the center. I mean, when you look at the all-time winning percentages across the league, they're not that far apart. Right. Overall. Right. So, and that's because of exactly that. Like, you're going to be good. And then, especially with the salary cap, you're going to end up being bad. Like, there's no way to mitigate that. Or you just middle all the time, which is what the Steelers have essentially done. They haven't had a losing record. Sure. They're not exactly tearing the top off anymore either. Right. So they've just let their pendulum rest at the bottom, which is right in the middle.
Yeah. Yes and no. So I think about 2 years ago when they didn't make the playoffs with a 9-8 record, and the defense was kind of keeping them in games, and they did not have TJ Watt for most of the season. So he came back, and they wound up getting the winning record, but they didn't make the playoffs with that winning. Or did they? Was that when they made the playoffs?
They did make the playoffs. They were
because of the tie. Because of the tie that didn't happen. Had they tied and they were looking forward to the tie, and then San Diego called the timeout.
Exactly. Yeah, had that tie happened, both the Chargers and the Raiders go, Steelers would have been out.
Right.
Yep.
Instead, the Steelers wind up going, and the Chargers stink it up.
Yep. The Chargers and everybody gets fired.
Don't call a timeout. Timeout.
Yeah, because everybody was content with, hey, let's pack up our toys. We're going to play next week. And instead, the Chargers are like, we want to try and do something. It's like, you were already in the playoffs. Like, there's nothing you could do today that's going to better that.
Except screw it up.
Right? Like that's the whole point of it, is it's like, there's nothing you could do to better the position you're in. The only thing you can do is
make it worse.
Out. Yeah.
To make it worse. Good for them.
And everybody had the same reaction as soon as they called that timeout. You're like, what are you doing?
I remember watching it. I was down in Tampa for that.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, ooh, that's
why would you do that? Yeah, no, exactly. Like we were just watching it at home, and it was just like, what? Like you have the playoffs in the bag. All you do is just run the play, and it's over. And instead, they call the timeout, ultimately lose like crazy.
Never a dull moment, I tell you.
That brings us to the midway point, though, and of course we have True Fusion Gym right here in the Pacific Northwest. Whether you're in Bellevue, Ballard, University Village, take the QR code right on the screen there. Free 5-day pass at any of the 3 locations: Pilates, boot camp, yoga, hot yoga. They have rooms up to 95 degrees. Find your edge at True Fusion Gym. And then, of course, the new sponsor of our network, which is BetUS or BetUs, depending on how it is you want to read that. Also, use the QR code on the screen. You can bet alongside us. Your deposit will be up to 125% on up to your first 3 deposits. Bet alongside us at BetUS. All right, there we go.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm not allowed to be part of that.
Oh, yeah? You got different betting. I got you. Well, there you go.
That's why the camera went off.
I got you. I got you. Well, there you go.
And listen, that's why I've been fairly quiet about such things. I'm like, yeah, I can't. I appreciate the fact that the network is doing this, but I am.
So which one are you with? Might as well plug them.
Right now, we're doing Bovada.
Okay.
So Bovada has given me the trial. It's quick trial, see how well we do, see if I can get some movement.
There you go. All right. Right on.
Exactly. So, but let me give a quick shout out to TickPick.
Yes.
Great seats, no fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Go with TickPick, the official ticket sponsor of Eagles.
There you go. So we do have a quarterback that is moving, and that is Malik Willis, headed to Green Bay.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what I did. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I actually kind of like that move for Green Bay.
Malik Willis.
Yeah,
he was down there in Tennessee for a long time.
Right, that's what I figured. It wasn't even a long time. It was just a couple of days.
Yeah, it was exactly. So interesting. I do like that move for both Green Bay and Malik. I think that'll be a good spot for him.
Yeah, well,
hopefully. Maybe he can rebirth his career there or something. He wasn't looking too good in Tennessee, so.
Well, he was stuck behind, and all he is really a glorified running back.
Yeah.
I feel like, guys, he's short, he's stocky. Put a couple extra pounds on him and start handing him the rock.
Yeah, I think you could do some fun things with him. Like I could see getting him involved in some gadget plays. He's a good enough athlete. He seems like a guy you want on the field, even if he's not going to be, your starting quarterback, obviously. But I feel like he's one of those guys, kind of like a Taysom Hill, where you can use him in some packages where you can get him on the field, get him involved, create some problems, throws the ball well enough that you can do trick plays. I think this could be a good addition for Green Bay. Now, not to say that they do a lot of that type of stuff, because they kind of don't, but it opens the door to it.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess they need every little bit of help they can, because their quarterbacks over the last couple of games have come up with 2 points and like no points and stuff like that over the last few games. The Packers stunk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that for a few different teams, though, because I mean, the Steelers having 2 quarterbacks somehow don't have a quarterback at all. You got the Giants that didn't put up a touchdown in the preseason at all, a passing touchdown. So that, inspires a lot of confidence. But
didn't Jordan Love just get a pretty good sized contract already? He already hit his contract, didn't he?
Yeah. So he didn't have to try anymore, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's kind of what I was looking at. I mean, does he get the bag and stop trying? I mean,
no, I don't think it's that. I think preseason now is so wildly different team to team, right?
Yeah.
Like the last game of the preseason was the Patriots and Washington. The Patriots came out with their first stringers on the opening drive, and Washington came out with third stringers across the board because they're evaluating talent. So the preseason doesn't really give you the look that it used to, because teams use it so different than they used to. I mean, there used to be kind of a standard, not everybody subscribed to it, but like 90% of the league would, like, the first game, your starters would have like a series, right? And then the second game, you'd have, maybe a first quarter or just a couple of series. The third game was, they would do maybe the first quarter and then like the opening drive. And then the last game was, a series, and then it's all backups, right? So now it's just kind of, I mean, some of them don't bring the starters out at all.
Right.
The whole preseason, they're just like, it's only going to be backups. We just want to evaluate talent. Or, you have some that are going to play their first stringers in every game. And the problem is that just gives you weird matchups that give you an unrealistic view of where teams are, because okay, that opening drive looked good for a team. It's like, okay, well, great, but you're playing against guys that, you're playing against a team that decided to evaluate talent against guys that probably aren't going to make the squad. So I should hope you look good.
Yeah, if you didn't, that would look really bad on you.
Yeah. So, I mean, like when you have a team that rolls out their first string and you're going against a team that has their third stringers, if you blow right through them, okay, cool, you were supposed to. If they held you, you're like, okay, well, are those third stringers that strong, or is there something wrong with your offense? If somehow you fall flat, that's like Alabama losing to Tulane, right? It's like, okay, well, in that game, if Bama destroys them, you're like, okay, yeah, like we didn't see anything we didn't expect to see. If they struggle, they're like, oh, what's wrong with Alabama? It has nothing to do with what Tulane did. If somehow Tulane wins, it's doom and gloom for Alabama. Like, so I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like if you roll out,
well, that's just there's so much lower expectation on a team like Alabama than it would be like on Tulane. That I can see what that would be.
Yeah, there's only downside, right? So when you have first come out and they're going against third stringers, I don't care how good they look, they're supposed to look good. Like you're not evaluating anything useful in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Other than timing, I guess.
I would love to watch Tulane beat Alabama, though. That would be amazing.
It would be fantastic. I would have my giant bowl of popcorn and enjoy all of that.
I'm getting excited this year, though. There's a lot of teams out there, though, that could be fairly good or could be.
I think Alabama takes 2 steps backwards now. This is a different coach, and that's a big, big, big deal in college football.
It is. It is. I think what helps them is the fact that it's the 12-team playoff.
So Texas took.
Is it 12 or it's only 8 this year?
It's 12. It's 12 teams.
Yeah, it's 12.
Yeah, and then next year, in theory, it'll be 14. or it's either next year or 2 years, but it's 12 this year.
Okay.
That's insane.
Which means
there shouldn't be any bitching or griping about who should or should not, be getting the championship. If
Oh no, you better believe there's still going to be something.
Oh yeah,
An 11-1 team that's number 13 on that list.
Oh, I don't think there's going to be that many one-loss teams. I think you're going to see number 13 is going to be at a minimum a 2-loss team.
Well, I would think so too. But think about a team like Marshall.
Sure.
If they went 11-1 in the CPAC, whatever it is, that's the Centennial League or whatever it is, there's a good chance they wouldn't make that. If you have Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, all those teams back in the mix again, and then you have Georgia, Alabama.
So I think that's where they actually get that spot at 11-1 is because these divisions are going to beat each other up a little bit. So you're going to have
it. So here you go. Here's the bubble. Who are you choosing? And this could very well possibly be.
Sure.
Marshall at 11-1.
Okay.
Notre Dame at 10-3.
And you're saying
the rest of the schedule,
you're saying Marshall's their conference champion?
Marshall is the conference champion.
Notre
Dame is 11-3, and on that same bubble with Marshall.
Yes. So the thing is you would probably give the nod to the conference champ.
I'm saying that they would probably be more. No, I'm telling you that's not how it would go.
I think it would go Notre Dame's way.
I mean, it entirely could and probably would, but it shouldn't.
I know it shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I just gave a real scenario.
No, for sure.
That's a very possible situation. And I'm using Marshall as a thing. I don't even know if Marshall's any good. Like West Virginia could be in that same boat.
Obviously, towards the end, it's always going to still be subjective because voting is part of college rankings, right? And it's weird, but it's a thing. So is there going to be something like that? Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, that can absolutely happen. But that being said, they had a path to still get in because if they went undefeated, they'd have made it, right? And so at the end of the day, it's still if you're down in that 12th, 13th spot, win more games. I mean, you can complain and you can try and make a case, but if you have an L on that record, hey, go undefeated because any undefeated team in any of the major conferences is going to get in.
Well, I think that, so let's go backwards to last year. Georgia loses the last game to Alabama in a last second.
Yes.
And because of that, they wind up number 5, which I thought was a travesty.
It was ridiculous. Yeah.
It was it is like they moved them out of there. So the best 2 teams would have been Michigan and Georgia, and that would have been an amazing championship game. Not that Washington didn't play great.
Sure.
Washington actually held their own much better than I expected them to.
Yeah.
Right.
But they were not the 2 best teams. Georgia, who played a team that didn't want to play because they were undefeated and they got also skunked out of it. It was so ridiculous last year.
Yes.
How that all played out that it should now I understand why they had to go all right, yeah, we got to get this 12 team up right away now because 4 didn't cut it.
Yeah, no, they fumbled the bag last year so badly. I mean, you keep an undefeated team out, you move Georgia out that was arguably one of the best teams, not just last year, but
maybe ever.
Few years. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is, I don't know if it's fixed, but the voting is suspect.
It's certainly not impartial.
And you're not wrong, Scott. It is all about the money there. But, I mean, I don't know how you keep a team like that out. And of course, Alabama gets in because they beat Georgia, even though they were a one-loss team. And that's what opened the door for Texas to get in because Texas had beat Alabama. So I'm like, there was a lot of moving pieces in the way that they voted. And, it just, none of it made sense the way it ended up coming down.
No, 100%. So.
Which is why I'm excited about the 12-game, expansion of the playoffs, because there's finally a playoff, right? It's the only version of football that didn't have a legitimate playoff system. So at least now there is one. Obviously we get to see what it looks like with 12 teams. It moves to 14, so that even makes the scenario you just dropped even less likely, because at a 15th team, you're a 3-loss team, right? The odds are team 15, once it expands to 14, team 15 is probably a 3-loss team.
Team 13 and 14 could very well be 3-loss teams.
Oh, I agree. I mean, realistically, outside of the top 10 could be a 3-loss team.
Right.
So so although the scenario that you laid out is plausible, it's probably not going to go down that way. But I mean, I can see how there would be an argument in that situation. But
because it would be like a strength of schedule situation. That's where they would fight it at.
Exactly.
And it's like, get the frig out of here with your strength of schedule. You made the schedule.
Exactly.
So it's like we can only play against the teams that we are playing against.
Well,
that was Florida State's argument last year. Now Florida State's already out because they got beat by Georgia Tech.
But they're not out because you're going to have multiple lost teams in this new playoff.
They're out now. You watch them. I would bet against Florida State this next game. When you lose a big game, like that next game will come out flat too.
No,
so I'd bet a lot of money against Florida State.
I agree. They're probably out. I just mean that losing the one game doesn't knock them out yet. But I agree with you. Like, losing that game hurts.
And I think about this in the opposite direction. Give Deion Sanders, he plays does better this season than he did last season, and he only has 3 losses. Somehow he sneaks into that number 12 spot.
So that will definitely be a thing.
That might have been a better thing than Notre Dame, actually.
Yeah. So, and I think in that scenario, they would definitely move Colorado in, and it would fall back into Scott's point here, is it's all about the money for the NCAA. And that would bring more money in, having Deion.
It would bring more media. The money would come after the fact, but it would bring the media and now put that in the scenario. Like, okay, you have a 10-3 Notre Dame and a 10-3 Colorado.
There's not even a question.
Well, that's tough because the strength of schedule should favor Notre Dame.
Oh, no question. But again, it's a voting situation, and the NCAA sucks. So it would be Colorado.
I'd be scared for the 10th ranked team in that scenario, because I think that you wind up, or the 11th ranked team, whoever was above both of them, if they're on the bubble at 12, that 11th ranked team is probably going to come out. So that could mean that a team that on these lower conferences that have like 11-1 could be knocked out of the playoffs in that scenario. Or like I said, maybe even the 10th ranked team who's got like Florida State, who loses a second game, but they're going to now weigh heavily on this Georgia Tech game. That Georgia Tech has actually got a pretty good team this year, because
they do have a good team.
They're taking all of the players that Georgia's not taking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, where Georgia gets all the 5 stars, they're getting every 4-star now, because they're so far behind in the pecking order in Georgia that they're going to Georgia Tech now. So Georgia Tech is actually starting to get better because how great Georgia is.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you watch Georgia Tech play, you're like, okay, they got a squad, right? Like in that game, you're just like, here we go.
Show that, Scott. I'm telling you, Scott, I would definitely hedge my bet here. I would take Boston College with the points and then I would quarter the bet. I would put in, me personally, I would put a $200, two dimes on Boston College with the points, and then I'd put $50 on the money line because that money line's probably huge. Probably win more on the money line than I would in the thing, and I would not be surprised to see Florida State come out 0-2 at the end of Labor Day.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
Against College, that would be crazy.
And I think what'll happen is that if they do win that game, if Florida State does win that game, it's going to be like a last-second field goal.
No, I can ride with that. I can ride with that. I have a hard time buying they lose to Boston College. Oh.
That's why I would hedge the bet. I would bet the 200 with the points. Lots of points. Too many points, I think, for this week. So lots of points there. And then $50, and then $50 on the money line. When I find out what that money line is, definitely mark it down there because we should have that ticker. And on Monday or Tuesday, you guys tell me how wrong I was or right I was.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's I can't imagine they'd lose outright. 21 points is a healthy spread, though.
Yeah, that is a healthy.
It's Boston College. Boston College hasn't been relevant for. Since Flutie.
No, for sure. So this is one where they either fall way short or they just absolutely beat the brakes off them.
Right. I agree. But I don't think that I think that they do fall short. I think that they may win. They may win this game, but it's going to be a lot closer. And I think especially they just came back from, Ireland. It's like you played the game over there and you blew it. You were ranked, and now you're probably unranked. You know what I mean?
They're unranked.
So it's like I feel that things are hedging me towards Boston College.
No, that would be interesting. I would definitely hedge the bet to.
Yeah, I wouldn't put $200 on the money line because I don't have it like that. But
sure.
And I'm not going to bet. I'm not going to bet either. So I'm not betting the money line or the $200. So there you have it.
Yeah. I mean, like any kind of sports bet that I would even do is just pizza money anyway. Like I'm not a huge, it's something where I'm like, if I lose it, I really don't care,
Yeah.
I would do, you know what I would do? I would spend $5 on an open parlay.
Sure.
With Boston College money line and open.
Yeah.
And that's what I would absolutely do. As long as I could keep that open for 5-6 days. I mean, I hate betting in the NFL on the first week of the season because it's so ridiculous on what you're going to see. The first 4 weeks of the NFL is so tough to try to choose.
Especially when you think about how they practice now and the little amount of live reps that they have. I mean, those first couple of weeks of preseason games, like they look horrendous, especially when you look at timing routes are always off. When you look at offensive line play, it is absolute garbage. I mean, those first couple of weeks.
It's preseason. It's a preseason.
It really is. It really is. It's terrible. Like if you like watching a polished professional product, the first couple of weeks make you mad. Watching those games. You're just like, this is terrible.
That's it.
That's because they're evaluating.
That's it, Scott.
You really can't expect the best of the best.
So what's on the opposite side? I know that you're saying Florida State. What's that? A 540, a plus 540? That seems so low for a 21-point spread.
That does.
I mean, I thought that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000. I thought it would be around the thousands.
Yeah, for the money line should be a minus 1,000, minus 1,200. If you're a 3-score favorite,
right?
The money line.
That's what I'm saying. Plus 525. See, look at me knowing my stuff there when it comes to the money line.
Which also that seems
low.
Like that should have been 800 at least.
I think that I agree. It should have been 12 and 8. That's what I figured. Minus 1,200 plus 800.
Exactly.
That tells me that I'm right.
Yeah.
That line is telling me that there are a lot of other people thinking the exact same way I am.
No, I mean, absolutely. And I would have been right there with you that they don't cover the 21 points. Like I would have not taken those points on that.
But
I mean, no, probably not.
Oh Lord,
that's a game I would not touch.
God, I wouldn't touch that game either.
You know what game I would almost touch though?
Check that out. Point spread coming down. See,
They're
now,
hearing me. They must have heard me.
like if you would have thrown money at the 21.
No, they heard me. They're listening. There's other people thinking the exact same thing. When you're in college and you lose a big game, usually that next game is also a loss.
See,
It's the way it works.
as this thing continues to fall, that's where you bought in at the 21, right? It drops, you resell your ticket, you made money, you don't even have to watch the game.
There you go.
Well, that's a good point, though.
We're learning as we go. That's the way to do it. Make sure to use Bovada.
Mac's mad at that one. Bovada or BetUS or whatever betting platform you use, jump in on some of these because good times.
Exactly.
Or you lose everything and you find yourself at a homeless shelter thinking like, damn, I wish I would listen to Bo and bet all that money.
I mean, I feel like if you bet all that money, there's a good chance you end up at that homeless shelter.
Correct.
I bet it all, Bo. I went all in.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. That's the problem. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. If you're watching on Roku TV, be sure to stay tuned for the next hour. Other than that, we will catch you all tomorrow morning.
Take care, guys.